Okay, so this is the first video for topic 5.1, the Enlightenment. And this is a really important topic. So, what we're looking for in this topic is to be able to answer the following questions. First of all, we want to understand why the new ideas of the Enlightenment provided the intellectual and the ideological context of the revolutions in the Atlantic world that we're about to get into. So what's going on is between 1750 and 1900, we've got all these new ideas, and they're going to lead to revolutions such as the American Revolution, French Revolution, Latin American Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution. And these revolutions are going to be the pattern, are going to be the ones that everybody points to and tries to follow. So we want to make sure that we understand how did this lead up to those revolutions. Secondly, we really want to understand how these new ideas affected society. So, our success criteria is first of all, we're going to get into why the Enlightenment began. And inside of that, we're going to identify what exactly the Enlightenment was. We're going to work with a lot of primary sources in this topic. So, our skill is we want to be able to read the source, identify the claim and the supporting evidence to understand exactly what the new idea is and what it's attacking. We want to make sure that we identify and explain how the political, economic, and social systems changed due to the Enlightenment. And finally, we're going to end this video series up with coming back to our first question. How is this going to provide the context? This topic focuses on culture. And our theme of culture basically identifies a set of ideas, beliefs, and religions that are going to not only define a population and give them an identity, but also illustrate what they think society should be like. Now, this culture, as we've seen many times in the past, have a lot of implications in the political, the social, and the economic processes. So, as we go through this, and the reason why I'm showing you this, when I ask a question, say a short answer or DBQ, I'm going to focus on one of these two things to kind of frame your thinking. So, setting the stage, what is this really about? Well, we know that in 1750, we have three main political, economic slash social processes. And these processes developed after the Black Death and during the Age of Exploration to not only help people survive, but prosper. We start off on the left with the big king. That is absolutism, in which a leader who's legitimized by God has all the power and acts kind of like a father figure. In the middle, we have mercantilism, the economic system which controls trade and essentially evaluates the success of a nation within in the amount of gold and silver it had. So therefore, there's not going to be a lot of choices and a lot of freedoms in the economy. And then finally, we have the old social structure. And we haven't really spent a lot of time on this, but it's very easy. Social classes were based on birth. Remember, even the second born in the age of exploration essentially could not inherit property or title. So everybody is basically in social classes, not because of their talents, not because of how much money they have, but what their last name was. Another thing in society is very patriarchal. Now, we know that the worldview in 1750, which is the way we look at the world and guides our actions, essentially is driven by empiricism. So what's happening is when educated people in 1750 looked at these three processes, they realized that they really didn't make sense, that they really, really didn't hold up to a lot of scrutiny and gave a lot of people specific advantages. So, because of this, the Enlightenment philosophers are going to propose new systems of government, new economic systems, and new social structures that are going to promote individuality, that are going to protect rights. So, this is basically what we're talking about. So, our first part, and in the rest of this video, essentially what we're doing is we're going to define the Enlightenment and kind of explain where it came from. So, the Enlightenment, and I would write this definition down, is an intellectual and ideological movement centered in 18th century Europe, that's the 1700s, that rejected traditional political, economic, and social thinking in favor of new ideas developed through the application of observation, empirical data, and rational thinking. So, to kind of make sense of that, the Enlightenment essentially was a group of individuals who used the ideas of the scientific revolution to attack absolutism, mercantilism, and the ancient social classes. So, this begins in the scientific revolution, in which humanity realized that their observations of the world really didn't make sense, and that when they put the sun in the center of the solar system, everything clicked. Probably the most important connection to the Enlightenment was Sir Isaac Newton. He wrote a book called The Principia, in which he described the entire world as working on natural and observable laws. So all these enlightened philosophers, they were very highly educated and had read his book. And they began to think, wait a minute here. If I think rationally and I use empiricism, I can find the rules, the laws that govern people's behavior, and I can develop new social processes, new economic processes, and new political processes that promote individualism. So, this is what the Enlightenment was. The Enlightenment is a time period in which these people, as you can see right here, observe the current political systems, the economic systems, and the social systems, and came up with new ideas that are going to promote individualism, rights, and allow them to determine their own lives. So, what was the Enlightenment and how did these ideas develop and spread? Well, essentially, the Enlightenment is the 18th century philosophical movement, intellectual movement, in which the thinkers applied the ideas of the scientific revolution into studying existing political, economic, and social systems and developed new ones that promoted individualism, people's rights, and self determination.